My name is Shannon Shorter, and today I'm going to be doing a persuasive speech. And what my purpose is to try to let everybody understand why, in today's world, that ASL, which is American Sign Language, is something that everyone needs to know and needs to learn. Instead of trying to fix the deaf or hard of hearing, starting from a young age, we need to take the initiative to learn their language and their grammar because it's not something that needs to be fixed. This is just them. It's just like if somebody loses a leg, we don't say, well, let's, fix him because he can't walk the correct way. We adapt. We give him tools to be able to walk again, just like what we need to do with the deaf and hard of hearing individuals in order to communicate, which is ASL. So I want you to picture this. You're in the emergency room, and while you're sitting there, a woman runs in with her little baby, all frantic. She's trying to talk to the lady at the desk, but it becomes apparent to you real quickly that this woman is deaf. She's pointing, she's using signs with her hands, she's moving, and the lady behind the desk has no clue what this lady's trying to say. So the lady behind the desk realizes she's deaf, so she calls for an interpreter and to do a video call. This takes 25 minutes for it all to get set up till the woman can finally explain what's going on. All in all, this took the woman with the baby an hour just to be able to explain what was wrong and why she's in the ER, when it takes us 2 minutes to walk in the door and explain. This is unacceptable. I believe that everyone in the US, and actually I guess all over the world, should learn sign language. Now, granted, in America, it's American Sign Language. I believe this should be from the early years, like kids in kindergarten and up. I think that this needs to be done so society and we can bridge the gap of communication problems between us and the deaf community. I want to see language deprivation for the deaf community become non-existent, and it's really easy. I want to persuade you today to take an AL class, just one. Take that first step to help bridging this gap. Did you know that 9 out of 10 children are born to hearing parents? 9 out of 10 deaf children are born to hearing parents. Yet less than 1/3 of the family members learn to sign. 9 out of 10 children, and 1/3 of those families learn how to communicate with their children. According to the National Institute on Deafness, 1 out of 8 people in the United States, 12 years or older, have hearing loss in both ears. 1 out of 8. This is crazy, and yet we don't know how to communicate with them. According to Wyatt Hall, who is a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Rochester Medical Center's Clinical and Translational Science Institute, 25% or less of deaf children use ASL at home. About 80% of the deaf children will get a cochlear implant later. Cochlear implants create an electrical signal, not the ability to hear, so that the child misses the first year of life and exposure to language. So when that child gets the cochlear implant, the child doesn't know any language foundation to help them decode those electrical signals. So we're taking a deaf child, putting cochlear implants, who it doesn't give the ability to hear, it just gives the signals, but they can't decode the signals because they haven't learned a language. We're depriving our children. 25% of children, 25% or less of deaf children use ASL. This isn't acceptable. There are many different reasons, though, why language deprivation is happening in the deaf community. And it's causing a slew of problems throughout a deaf individual's life, not just in the beginning. And here are a few important ones outside of the ones I've already said. According to the National Center for Biotechnology Information, linguistic deprivation carries with it a spectrum of problems besides just language pathologies. And this is true if you think about it. Kids aren't learning. They're not being able to expand their minds because they don't have a language to communicate. They're not able to speak with their families. They're not able to develop those personal relationships that every child and adult needs. In 2017, 53.3% of deaf individuals were employed, compared to 75.8% of hearing individuals. So because these people are deaf, they're unable to get a good job because we as a society haven't learned to communicate with them. So we don't, outside of getting the technologies, which can be expensive, we don't want to pay for that. So it's easier to hire a hearing individual. This isn't okay. It's just not. Solving the issues of language deprivation, leading to other problems for the deaf community, it's going to take initiative on people. It must start with the parents and the healthcare. It's got to start. These parents need to learn the language to speak with their children. They need to, these doctors and nurses and health, they need to learn this language to be able to to be able to talk to the deaf community. The schools, the workforce, everywhere, hearing individuals. There should be no reason to discriminate. This should be a language that we all should be learning. It's not hard. I want to read you a poem. It's called Thoughts of a Deaf Child by Steve Claridge. My family knew that I was deaf when I was only 3, and since then, 15 years ago, have never signed to me. I know when I'm around the house, I try and use my voice. It makes them feel more comfortable. I try communicate their way uncomfortable for me. Communicate their way uncomfortable for me. For me, I have no choice. My parents wouldn't learn to sign ashamed or apathy. I never cared about the sound of radios and bands. What hurts me the most is I never heard my parents signing with their hands. It's emotional for me, sorry. But if we all work together, the barriers and language deprivation can become obsolete. The difficulties and the discrimination of the deaf community can go away. All it takes is one person to start a chain full of events. This needs to start, especially at birth for a deaf child. But as members of the hearing community, we also can make a difference just by learning to sign. And it's easy as this. Hi, my name is Shannon. Nice to meet you.